Alright guys, so I think we might have accidentally stopped that last video. So we're here set up, ready to do some XT60 connector action here. And that's for the simple fact that we've got a Dean's connector on here now. Of course, some of you guys use Dean's, so you don't have to take those off. Obviously, you just leave that on. But in my experience, I've not had any problems with XT60 connectors, so I just stick with what I know. Not to disparage anything about Dean's connectors or people that choose to use them. I don't really care what you guys like. I like XT60s, they're good. Okay? So now you could desolder that if you wanted, if you're into that sort of thing, but I'm just going to go ahead and clip it off. And if you're buying a Lemon RX receiver, they sell XT60s for a very good value. So I would encourage you to consider buying them there if you're already buying that receiver anyway. Now, one thing I thought was a little bit strange on this configuration. That one's already been soldered. I got a thing about, I don't mind using what's used, but I'd rather use what's new if I have something that's new to be used. But yeah, this is what you'd be getting if you got them at Lemon RX. So why don't we just use one of those today? And they sell those for, I believe, less than 50 cents. So it's a quite a good value. Now, in my experience, when you build one of these, the easiest way to do it is to simulate your battery lead. Plug it into your female port. Of course, on your 4S pack or whatever, you're going to have your plug like this. It's actually female because there's a socket, but the plug itself is a male plug, which is received by a female plug, which happens to have pins. It's very confusing stuff. So anyway, this is what we're putting onto the airplane side. Okay? Don't use an actual battery, because then you'll have that added complication of being able to short things out. And I would highly encourage you to get some heat shrink from over at Hobby King. I'll show you which part number to get. I'm just going to verify this real quick. Okay, so the size you need, large enough to fit over without being tight. This is your Hobby King part number for the black. Okay, and go ahead and take and cut this off. 3/4 of an inch or an inch or something like that. If you go a little bit overboard, it's not such a huge issue. Just extra weight is all. Okay, so here's your red color. Here's your part number. Okay, so we got those cut. And the first thing you need to do is slip those over your cables, which are now dropped back into your plane. Okay, and they slide right over without any problem. They are yellow cables underneath the exterior sheath, which is a little bit different. This is not a real flexible cable either. I'm not real pleased by that, but whatever. It'll be fine for what we're doing on this plane, but it'd be nice to see them using a silicone, nice flexible cable like what we're used to be perfectly honest. Okay, so I'm just using the strippers to take off the tip. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that wire so far. You see how much of that stuff I lost? You can always tell when you're using good quality cable because it's easy to work with. You use poor quality cable, it's hard to work with. You're not going to talk me out of that because I work with cable for a living. Well, not only working with cable, but that's a big chunk of what I do. Okay, so now I need to somehow keep this from falling in. But I want to make sure that it's not going to gouge the sides. Well, the sides aren't very strong on this plane because this is a naturally weak point in the plane. So I have to find something that's strong enough to spread out the load, like a chunk of foam, or maybe something like this would work. But it's got to be narrow enough. Yeah, see, something like that. I don't like it. What about this? That might work. Either way, it looks like actually this is stiff enough cable that you can take and just bend it, which that's not very common either. Okay, so just get your bend. I got to figure out a way to keep that from falling back in there, guys. That is not a good thing. You do not want this wire falling back in while you're trying to work with it. So I'm going to take and see if I can get it. You can't clamp onto it. You don't want to compromise the heat shrink. Again, this is one of those weird issues I didn't expect to be having. Okay, this level, that's heavy enough to hold it up. But it's not heavy enough to damage the foam, I don't think. Unless I pressed on it, of course. Okay, so clean the tip. Mechanically clean the tip. Get in here and get the solder into the actual tip. Taking solder good. That's a good sign, at least. Just let that solder wick in there, guys. Now that we got that done, we can jump back into the forceps. In my experience, you grab onto the male side there, the battery side, and then you're going to take this, pull it way up, and you're just going to kind of fill this up a little bit. Okay, just kind of hold that up on its own. Okay, so we're about halfway full in there of solder, flux, and whatnot. Okay, so now I need to take and bend this again real sharp so I can control it. And I'm going to take and heat up the wire. As I heat the wire, it's going to want to slide into the now tinned connector. Okay, very good. So we're going to let that cool. I'll give you guys a closer shot of this when it's done. Okay, so we got that side done. Now let's move on to the other side. So the other side, we got to strip back the end. We've already got the heat shrink onto the red. I just thought of a brilliant plan, and that would be called making it so you can actually get your workpiece out. Guys, I soldered that on and I can't get this back out. That was a huge, huge brain fart, guys. So that worked really nice until I realized I was going to have to pull that back out. Sorry. We'll just try it this way then. And that thing is hot. That's why you clamp on your XT60. I was just thinking that went way too smooth. Given the way the rest of this project has gone, you know. Okay, letting it cool. Whenever you think it's cool, wait another count to 3. Alright, very good. So now we can go ahead and move on to the other half, which is the black half that's dropped back in here. That wire's hot, so you'll want to kind of keep it off the edge if you can, because it will melt your phone. So you want to be real careful about that. Oh, guys, I hope I haven't been out of focus that whole time. If I have, I'm real sorry. The good news is I've done this exact video so many times I can't remember. So if you really need to see it up close and personal, watch one of the other videos. I do it for pretty much every video. I probably shouldn't do that every time. Every build series. That's one thing I've been trying to do. I don't know if you picked up on that, but I'm trying to do it consistent. Every time I get a plane, I want to make it so you guys know what to expect. It'll be an unboxing, then a build video, and then either in the build video or after the build video there'll be a radio setup. So you guys don't have to wonder. That's my hope, at least. I'm assuming it won't always work out that way, but at least for the foreseeable future, that's my plan. And I got 2 new planes coming in the next week and a half, possibly 3. So this is just one. I think you guys will like them too. They're going to be pretty cool. Okay, so now there's that drip of solder that went down there, so I'm just trying to work this in. So I'm going to just let it sit now. So now I need to get this filled up with solder, just like the other side was. Okay, so that's good now. Alright, so now I need to take my forceps again so that I can take care of the heat issue. And then I need to guide this in there. So I'm going to hold the forceps. I'm going to bend this wire so it'll kind of hold its shape. I'm going to rotate these forceps to the other side of the connector. Getting it nice and hot, and I'm sliding it into the socket. Now I'm going to hold it for a count of 3. Past when I think it's done. Alright guys, so we're real close to being done with this XT60 business now. We're actually gonna have to flip this over. I got a big glob of solder on this side, so that's unfortunate. We'll go ahead and take this solder and we'll heat it up, and then we'll bring it over here by just heating the other side and letting it flow over. Very critical that you do that, or you'll never get your heat shrink back where you need it. Okay? Look for sharp points too while you're at it. If you got a sharp point, you'll want to resolve it while you got your heat on. Alright, so next step, let's slide this heat shrink on the red wire up, because it's not been soldered for a little bit, so it should be nice and cooled down, so it won't shrink down on us immediately. Okay, so we slip that on. We'll slide that all the way up in there. We'll grab a regular lighter. Be careful with your foam. If you guys don't know how to solder, I'm going to encourage you to learn to solder. I know it sounds like an easy thing to do, but honestly it's not near as hard as you probably think it is. And it's an invaluable skill. In fact, if you want to be in this hobby and you don't know how to solder, you're going to struggle a lot, because there's a lot of different times when you need to be able to solder. And I mean, sometimes out of laziness I won't solder, but if I need to, I can, you know. So I just put a little Windex on there, which has some silicone in it. It'll lubricate this as I slide the heat shrink up. And I'm just having trouble hanging on to it is all. Okay, so I've got that all the way up, and it's kind of bunched up a little bit. I can live with that little bit of bunching. Just going to heat this up real good. You guys probably can't even see the flame in that image because it's so small right now. But it's definitely there. Okay, cool. So that's that. So now that connector is built and ready to rock. And just always double check when you're done, positive and negative. Okay guys, I'm going to pause it. We're going to call it quits on this video, and we'll come back to you shortly. I don't know if this is going to be part 5 or if this is going to be part 6 coming up, but we just finished the second half of part 4. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. More coming real soon.